The COVID-19 crisis shows how vulnerable we are, how unprepared we are to respond effectively when a pandemic catches us by surprise. But climate change is no surprise. Our country, the Netherlands, has made a name for itself through centuries of water management and adaptation. So today we're showcasing some examples of Dutch innovations. Dealing with water is in our Dutch DNA. Climate change doesn't only compel us to protect our heritage can also protect us. Today, the Netherlands National Commission for Unesco will present local and traditional knowledge that will instill the right level of urgency in our minds. My personal goal is to help scale up global efforts in adapting to the inevitable effects of climate change. I'm happy you're joining me in this venture. I wish you all a constructive and inspiring day.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marilies Schouwaas and I'm the Secretary General of the Netherlands Commission for Unesco. It's a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all here to this live online event on the role of culture in climate adaptation. Today's session is part of a larger program on the road to the Climate Adaptation Summit in January 2021.
Today's event is centered on 4 best practices, highlighting the role that culture, and particularly heritage, tangible and intangible, can play in adapting to climate challenges. We will showcase culture-based solutions to local climate adaptation from different parts of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, ranging from Amsterdam to the island of Bonaire. We will start off with the presentations of these 4 examples, after which we will continue with a panel discussion. We will illustrate how a different mindset allows us to seek solutions that are human-based, more sustainable and easier to adapt, using local approaches for global challenges. Thus, like UNESCO phrases it, changing minds, not the climate. Please allow me to introduce the projects and speakers of today. Project Waterkansen Kampen, presented by Marieke van Zanten from Foundation Het Oversticht. Stronghold St. Jan, represented by Huipert Krijns from the municipality of 's-Hertogenbosch. Amsterdam Wetlands, represented by Saline Verhoeven from Landschap Noord-Holland. And finally, Cultural Knowledge Systems and Climate Adaptation on Bonaire, represented by Franklin Boy Antoine from Foundation Fuikubo, Fundación Histórico Cultural Bonaireano.
In Kampen, in the province of Overijssel, close to the station, lies the Bolwerk-Baltenwacht region. For years now, the municipality has been working on a plan to restructure this area. It does this in collaboration with residents and entrepreneurs, but also with the local water authority, the National Cultural Heritage Agency and Het Oversticht.
Wij hebben onszelf de opgave gesteld om te kijken van wat is er op deze plek al gebeurd in het water. Hoe zijn mensen op deze plek al met het water omgegaan?
To find out whether remains from times past are still present in the ground. Soil drillings have been performed and geophysical research has been done. A sort of ultrasound has been made of the area. Results show that in the past, the bolwerk was an earthen embankment and that there are no longer any foundations present in the ground that the new design can be based on.
Wat het Oversticht doet, is eigenlijk in de geschiedenis duiken om te kijken wat we daar kunnen vinden wat mogelijk een oorzaak zou kunnen zijn van wateroverlast. En we kijken ook naar van wat zouden aanleidingen kunnen zijn om maatregelen die we nu zouden kunnen gaan treffen.
The results of the cultural, historical and hydrology analyses are used to acquire new insights. And thus the realization of a design finally materializes.
Eigenlijk komt de kennis hier samen om die kennis vervolgens al ontwerpend te onderzoeken van wat zou er dan mogelijk zijn in deze locatie.
The cultural historical knowledge has contributed to the design and has provided a better picture of the water system, as well as helping to gain the support of the residents. And so a useful contribution has been made in the creation of a renewed part of Kampen.
there are two water problems. So one is that we have more and heavier downpours, and the water comes from the bridge over the embankment down to the slopes and into the streets and the houses below. And the other problem is that the water is not able to go anywhere because the sewer cannot handle this amount of water, and the soil is part clay. So the streets and houses are flooding, and the basements are permanently filled with water, even these dry years we have had. And the municipal has been working on a solution for over 8 years, but could not succeed on making a plan that had the support of the inhabitants and the entrepreneurs. So we wanted to try a different approach. We wanted to step away from the preserving attitude, and we wanted to develop a new attitude. We believe that cultural historical knowledge can also contribute to find solutions for current challenges, such as climate adaptation. And we think you can find modern solutions in our past. But this requires a completely different approach from experts, both of heritage, also water management. But I think that adapting to this new attitudes lies the future of our working area in the future. And not only for climate change, but also for energy and renewable energy and other social challenges. Because if you are aware of your water tradition and you use it well, you are preserving and developing your cultural history. So we have merged our knowledge with the current water data and with the knowledge of the sewers and the hydrolist. And it was so much fun to do that because they know every inch of the whole water system. It was really brilliant to do that. And because of those conversations and work sessions and exchanging knowledge, we got different views and new insights and new solutions. But there's still a lot to discover. We are really in our early stages of research on water systems. We also heard everything that could go wrong in the process with design or management or knowledge gaps. So working integral is crucial, but it's difficult. And it became clear to us that we should not only combine our content, but also set up a good process for it. But the water authorities, they are the oldest governments we have here in the Netherlands, and they did not have their archives quickly disclosed, I should say. They never thought of the archives as an important source of information about water systems. Some do, of course, but most of the engineers and the hydrologists do not use it very often. But we were surprised about that, but we see their archives as their corporate heritage, and the archives itself is heritage, and put together is really the fundament of our water heritage. So we urge the water authorities to make sure that the information is digitally accessible to researchers, and make sure that someone knows and can transfers the knowledge to researchers and employees and managers. Because it's a gold mine. We think that archives are a gold mine for it and good for the good process. Start with research and get to know the place and get to know each other and what is already agreed on. So talk to the experts involved. So in the process, it's good to integrate a few times and to share results and knowledge and possible causes and solutions. So together with all the experts, inhabitants and governments, it's good to look at the assignment from all points of view at the same time. And we used design research as an instrument because spatial qualities are the key word, because in the end, that is what you will see in the streets. The process from our starting point until we had the support of the inhabitants and entrepreneurs in the city council was 6 months. So it was rather quickly. So in the end, it saves really a lot of time. It prevents mistakes, you get more support, and it's faster and cheaper. And the results are that the new approach works. We know, because we know how the place had developed itself, we understood the place better, and that was the fundament for choosing a good solution. It contributed to design, and an 8-year process was concluded in 6 months. And the extra result, the bonus result, and we really didn't see this coming, is that we got support from the local people and the city council for these measures through heritage. Well, if you've been working in a certain way with certain policies and rules, you have done it for a long time, it's very hard to look at your playing field with new eyes. But if your playing field is changing, And that is for heritage and water experts. You just have to adjust. You have to look for new possibilities, new solutions, and maybe adjust your minds and attitudes and policies. And we think that heritage can be a useful instrument for modern water management because our landscape is constantly changing. We always adjust. That's the whole game. And the important thing is when and how we adjust. This can be our future heritage. And it's really the beauty of it. You work in a tradition and you pass it on. And with doing so, you preserve your heritage. So I hope you can connect water management with heritage, put it on the agendas and bring it into practice. Thank you.
In the winter of 1995, large parts of the Netherlands along the rivers Maas, Waal, IJssel and Rhine were almost flooded. The area around 's-Hertogenbosch submerged once again and rivers surrounded the old walled town. And as the water level kept rising, the citizens were alarmingly reminded that the walls around the town still serve an important purpose. Well, not to protect citizens against the hostile army, but to protect against flooding. When the water level dropped back to normal, the town walls were inspected for their technical condition. The survey showed that the town walls were in a very poor state of repair. Even though restoration was very urgent, funding and public support was lacking for mere restoration. Instead of a classic conservation plan, the municipality introduced an ambitious development plan for the entire fortified system. 6.5 kilometers of town walls and strongholds surrounding the town. And the starting point is that military heritage can be of great value when history is not used as a barrier, but rather as a source of inspiration for innovative solutions, in which potentially conflicting interests are reconciled. It is an ongoing project since the year 2000 and induced numerous projects, including the restoration of the Maria Bastion and the execution of St. John's Bulwark. As in many historic towns, rainwater ends up in the same drainage system as sewage water. And in the event of peak showers, the sewage pipe cannot discharge all the water. During a downpour, the sewage runs in the river, thus polluting the surface water. A possible solution to prevent this kind of pollution is a sewage basin, a temporary storage of sewage and rainwater. By the time the rain shower is over, the sewage water can be pumped to the treatment plant. However, in a dense city like 's-Hertogenbosch, with over 1,200 listed monuments, it's very difficult to find a place for a space-consuming sewage tank. In 's-Hertogenbosch, we were lucky to have Maria Bastion, a former stronghold to the fortress, demolished in the late 19th century. The need for the sewage reservoir gave the inspiration to restore this bastion. Archaeological research revealed the foundations of the former stronghold and also determined the maximum length of the basin. A public park has been created on top of the sewage tank, and this urban park is a lively place embraced by students and residents. Well, for a century, this stronghold was hidden beneath the pavement and completely invisible to the public. By restoring the bulwark and reintegrating it into the urban grid, the original function of this spot as a gateway to the town, has been restored as well. The bulwark has become a social hub where information is exchanged. It's a central meeting point for both locals and foreigners alike. A strict precondition for this design was the water defense function. A demountable weir has been constructed. It can be erected to protect the bulwark and its precious heritage against flooding. So, as I explained in my introduction, the people of 's-Hertogenbosch once used water as ally. Today, we face the challenge to deal with ever-changing quantities of water, be it the rising water level of our rivers or the sudden heavy rain showers. And let's not forget drought and heat during summer. We will have to find new solutions to the threats we face on local, regional, national, and even on a larger scale. And I'm convinced that understanding heritage provides inspiring and smart solutions to climate change. Thank you.
Historical pastures, old villages and traces of former dike breaches along the Zuiderzee. Together, they tell the story of the reclamation of this low moor landscape north of Amsterdam, an icon of the typically Dutch landscape. The openness, the lush meadows and marshes, the historical landscape, the variety of land use and entrepreneurship on peat polders and on reclaimed land offers an unprecedented quality on a national and international level. The area has culturally, historically valuable elements, such as the Beemsterpolder and the fence line of Amsterdam, both UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There are several nature reserves with European protection. This valuable landscape is located in the middle of the highly urbanized area of the metropolitan region of Amsterdam and Alkmaar, where the number of inhabitants and visitors will continue to grow considerably in the coming years.
If you look at the area north of Amsterdam, it's actually entrepreneurship, technical innovation, and a high level of art and architecture that actually created this landscape. It created beautiful and unique landscapes, which we still enjoy and cherish today. Landscapes like the Beemster, for instance, that was cultivated and drained water to develop new agricultural land, to create space for country estates, and also to fight the water wolf that was taking up more and more land of the peats. But the technical innovation also came with a downside, especially after the Second World War and maybe the 70s, when the lowering of the water levels in order to accommodate agriculture on these peatlands caused problems with soil subsidence, the peat being evaporated and releasing CO2 into the air, and also the lowering of the biodiversity in the landscape. Climate adaptation means in this landscape that we have to higher the groundwater levels and enhance biodiversity with that. But how? And I think that is what we can learn from the history of this region. This is the Krat. It's a food box scheme that delivers locally produced food to my home all year around. It's all from the region of Amsterdam, and I think if we look at the future of this region we're talking about, we can join forces again to recreate an attractive climate adaptive landscape and shortening the food supply chain with a more focus on the region and connect urban and rural again could be a way to restore the peatlands. What we think in our project and the way we work on it is that the landscape is a physical reflection of our culture. We believe that our collective heritage can help us in the challenge of climate adaptation, restoring the peatlands, store CO2 again, and enhance biodiversity.
Global warming. Todo caminho está virando mais quente. Nos ijs na Noordpool, de Zuidpool, dat smelt. Holanda, o nosso ambiente vai ter frio, semana passada estava mais quente que o Bonaire.
Dia de Leni, não bunda fora passa de subir carpata bapa ou vai bopé. Ela manda subir de baranga, passa de caminho, baixa no outro caminho.
Nang mesabing plan di awa. Ante e plan di awa tabay encerrar com essa proteger a área nang que é importante para nós colectar a água. Se porta a área de dam, não tra casque bache, não verkavelen. E roi nang mesa queda limpo, mesa queda mantener. A água não mesa vai ding direção de lamang. A água mesa vai em direção de bo waterbeleid, bo plan, para vai ding dam nang. Mas construção de caia nang. Robot trabo caia nang, mas tem em conta que a água que cai não me queda riba caia, mas vai ter roi, ante o roi tem destinação para al final ajuda nós como Bonaire para den futuro planta back e também para manter nossa natureza.
A água é parte mais essencial para quando quero de como, é besta mas tem água, é galinha mas tem água, é cabrito mas tem água, é porco mas tem água.
Tem dam que simplesmente a dispersar, a templo dam não para trás, tanque matrimônio, a virou plano de parcelação. Dam ambuana, pouco vai também com nanti tra cas ibana aí aumento com andro templo dam e botar aí que água não é água também e essa cita corta tá causa muita segurável e também causa inconveniência problema inundando o lugar hospital tem no coração hospital não via diferente via a suceder último ano com hora tem vida forte tem problema no hospital
o problema está com o consumo quando tradam mês vai perder quizás não vai perder pero não tá pode usar mais ou não direito dam so dam tá fish consumo para como tradam
yeah like we saw in the video the water is going to the sea. The people are not working in the farms anymore. They went to work in the tourism sector. The maintenance of dams and small water reservoirs, like we call them tankies, have been neglected. Bonaire has since 1963 a water plant, a desalination plant. And they don't use the water. They don't catch the water in cisterns like in the past. That is one of our problems here in Bonaire. And I heard somebody said about Holland. They know how to deal with water. So we expect that they can help us. Our elders teach us how to deal with rainwater. Their goal is to avoid to go into the sea. And if the water go into the sea, we have problems with the coral reefs around the island. I think we can learn of the old people of Bonaire. They have a lot of knowledge.
If I can add to Boyd's, learning from the past solutions brought us, let's say, better embedded solutions. Learning from the past brought us solutions that people are familiar with, and that provided support to our projects.
Marika, I have a question for you. So what inspired you to take the approach you took? And what circumstances enabled you to think from a heritage perspective?
before, for heritage, the main threat to heritage was people and their activities of changing and developing listed buildings and landscapes. But now changes are to be made because of climate adaptation and renewable energy. And that's a whole new force. And we don't have any rules for that now yet. So we have to change our attitude and to help make rules and policies. Because if you don't help now, you miss an opportunity to have something to say later. And it can really mean also to broaden our work as heritage consultants to use our knowledge for a different purpose than to preserve heritage. You can use it for renewable energy, you can use it for climate adaptation.
Yes, and what forms of knowledge and tools did you use to design your solutions? Because you talked about maps, but you didn't do any archaeological work?
There were archaeological research made already, and we used that. And we used design research to do that. So we combined the knowledge we had from the landscape architects, from archaeologists, from the local experiences, and from the sewers and the hydrologists. And that combined together with research design. And we integrated that in a process. So for the process, it's very important that you don't start to make solutions and design solutions. First, you do all your research with every expert available to you and sharing your expertise.
Mr. Kreins, can you elaborate on that?
Well, there are a lot of similarities in our approaches. And in our case, the design team represented many fields of expertise. So history was not regarded as a burden, but historians, archaeologists, they were full members of the design team. So it's really the other way around. The design of a solution to climate change is not like a UFO landing in your town or in your region, but it starts with investigating in your archives, investigated in your soil by archaeologists, and also from the Bonaire example, talking to elderly or people who have some experience about how things happened in the past.
Yes, because I was wondering, Mr. Antoine, what were then the main challenges in the realization of your plans?
The main challenges to convince the people how important it is to maintain the water on lands, especially politicians, because they have to deal with the people that want development of the island. They want money, work. That is a challenge for me.
Do you recognize that?
To convince the people.
Yes, sure. Do you recognize that, Mr. Kreins?
Yes, our starting point was quite similar. No funding and no support. And so that was quite difficult. And we didn't start with a plan. We didn't start with a fancy project, but we started with raising awareness to the citizens, to the people, to the locals who were not aware that the town is a wall town. If you would ask a citizen, could you mention a wall town? They would say Naarden or Heusden or another wall town in the Netherlands, but not the town they live in. So we first had to work on that there was awareness that people live in a wall town and what walls actually mean. So this function of a water-bearing function, that was what people were not aware of. So and we had to investigate in local support, and we did that not by raising awareness to the, let's say, usual suspects of people who are interested already in heritage, but for instance in families with young children or people who are interested in outdoor sports activities. So that helped us a lot to get a very a large support from the municipality, from the community, to our let's say, costly and restoration and development project.
Marieke van Santen, what makes climate adaptation difficult for municipalities or other organizations?
Well, the challenges were to link the different interests together, from inhabitants, from entrepreneurs, from visitors, and climate adaptation. So it was very difficult. You have a lot of functions in a very small area, so you have to double the functions, multiple functions on the same time. So that was really a challenge. And the other one was there were already agreements on the amount of parking spaces, of what measures could not be taken, because the inhabitants very objected to open water in the area. But the research of the cultural history showed that there was always open water in that area until the day that they built houses there. So it was part of the solution and became very logical to make that solution. So that was a challenge that was good for heritage. So they became aware of it.
Yes, I was wondering also, Saline, for example, in your study, is the current need for climate adaptation only something of the present, or is it something that cultures and communities have been doing already for centuries?
I think that we now depend too much on the government, and we are not aware anymore on the effect on our lives and the effect of our own actions.
Mr. Keynes, can you elaborate on that?
We have to change in order for the climate to change. So the people have to change, not the climate has to change. And I think that's what we can learn from how we dealt with climate change in the past. And I think we should not fight the climate, but regard it as our ally.
How can heritage strictly be included into climate adaptation strategies?
I think education is very important on every level, starting from elementary school to later on, and in management and water heritage and water studies and heritage studies. But it also, you need to engage the community, and therefore you have to make it fun. It has to be something you can live and you can experience. And in Kampen, there is a very special way to do that. They have a high water brigade, and it's hundreds of volunteers who are helping the water authorities. And they have annual exercises to protect the old town from flooding. It happens every now and then, so exercising every year. And so the streets are shut down, and the windows and the doors from the houses are shut down with certain beams and shutters. And there are sandbags everywhere. It's like a military operation. It's very beautiful to do that and to see it once. And it's a lot of fun, and everybody gets bitterballen and soup. So everybody's happy. And so, with that happiness, people come aware of the water and the water systems, and they learn a lot by it. That's good, I think.
So having said this, it is an honor to give the floor to Mrs. Schelhaas, who will conclude this event with an official statement.
Professor Hofman, thank you very much for moderating this very inspiring discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, today we have seen a number of examples in which culture and heritage are key ingredients for local climate response. I would like to sincerely thank the speakers for sharing their insights and experiences. Your cases have not only inspired us, they have also given us a deeper understanding of the power of heritage and culture to offer solutions to climate adaptations that are tailor-made to local context and needs. We can draw a number of conclusions from our discussion today that will help us shape a vision about the essential need for heritage and culture in climate adaptation policy and practices. First, we need to move away from the dualistic worldview where nature and culture are too often considered as two separate domains. The examples of today show us the continuous intertwining of culture and nature in human environments. As such, nature-based and culture-based solutions to climate adaptations go hand in hand. Second, humans' response to climate change, such as the fight against water or drought, is not just something of the present. It is something that communities have been doing for centuries. We need these forms of knowledge, besides scientific or technical knowledge, to adequately tackle climate adaptations. Knowledge based on experience or practical skills, on trial and error. Knowledge that is acquired by responding to a constantly changing natural and human environment. Knowledge that is stored in our traditions, our history, our local practices, our heritage. Third, today's examples have demonstrated that when action is built on local traditions and customs, it provides agency to community groups to be in the driver's seat of change. The use of culture in climate adaptations enhances community participation and, as such, helps democratize climate action and enhances communities' resilience to external factors. 4, and last, when climate adaptation is built on heritage, culture and traditions, communities will be more likely to support policy decisions and government plans for climate action. Building on the identity of communities is a necessary ingredient for their acceptance and therefore for successful implementation of policy measures. In conclusion, the Netherlands Commission for UNESCO calls for a greater recognition of the power of culture, heritage, and traditional knowledge in climate action. We need yesterday's experience to design today's and tomorrow's climate solutions, in which the human factor is key. Therefore, let us see our event today not as the end of our journey, rather as a beginning. We are on the road to CAS, the International Climate Adaptation Summit, taking place in January 2021. We will continue our journey, also after the summit, to take a stand for culture and heritage in climate policy. We will seek alliances with practitioners, knowledge partners, and policymakers to sharpen our vision and to define policy recommendations. We will continue to collect and share best practices. As such, we will contribute towards a growing movement of the much-needed acceptance, action, and human agency to, indeed, change minds, not the climate.